But I'm super happy to invite our first guest to the stage, Dr. Lumír Hanus. Hanus is a leading researcher in the field of cannabinoid research. In 1992, Dr. Lumír Hanus and William Devane discovered anandamide, one of the first identified endogenous cannabinoids. This discovery provided evidence that the human body produces its own cannabinoids. I'm so excited about this. And that these compounds play a key role in regulating various physiological processes. He will no doubt tell us all about this remarkable system in the human body. Heartily welcome. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Lumír Hanus. So I would like to tell you something about endocannabinoid system. Everything started in fact in 1988. Then Dr. William Anthony Devane in laboratory in St. Louis University discovered cannabinoid receptors. So I started it in 1970, work with cannabis. It's 54 years ago in Czechoslovakia. At that time, it was 100% legal to use it for treatment in hospital. Of course, it was only in hospital in Olomouc City where I work at Palacký University. You know, cannabis, everybody knows that the most important are female flowering tops and female fruiting tops, and that there are such small sticks which we call trichomes, and in this ball on the top of this stick there is going on this miracle that there originates terpenes, terpenoids, cannabinoids, cannabinoid acids, and other. You know, in the fact, if we go to the history, in Czechoslovakia, now it's Czech Republic, American archaeologists, they found impressions of fibers, and thought it can be cannabis, but it was not as good to identify. So I talked with this American archaeologist, and she told me that it was 50-50, that it was nettle or cannabis, so it was not sure. But in one well, ancient well, they found just some mud, and in the mud was this twin with two strands, and each strand with threads, and it was 7,000 years old, and it's cannabis fibers. So it's the oldest what exists. After that, they found in China, mostly in deserts and so on. The oldest publication, what I found, is from 1821. One student of medicine in his dissertation studied just hemp leaves. Here is translation from German. And I'm not sure if this lecture is not the long one, you know. And about William Shaughnessy, we talked yesterday that he introduced medical cannabis to the Western world. And second important person was Henry Anslinger, which in 1937 prohibited cannabis as dangerous drug. But in 1950, Professor Zdeněk Krejčí at Palacký University, this was my boss where I work at the Department of Hygiene and Epidemiology, he discovered antibiotical principle of cannabis when he studied higher plants. And these were really significant antibacterial effects on gram-positive microorganisms and some pathogens, and they use it in stomatology, otorhinolaryngology, gynecology, and so on. And in 1954 already was at Palacký University scientific conference, Cannabis as Medicine. Yes, it was first scientific conference in December 1954. And from 1955, we started to treat patients with cannabis, and it was up to 1990. I participated 20 years on that. I teach students hygiene and did research on cannabis and prepare extracts for drugstore of the hospital. So in 1990, Professor Meshulam invited me for 1 year, so it finished. From that year, it became illegal because nobody prepared it for drugstore, so it terminated treatment with cannabis. Professor Zdeněk Krejčí, he discovered this antibiotical principle, and they found that this compound is cannabidiolic acid. This was first real cannabinoid from the plant, because before was known only cannabinol, which was identified in 1940 in the United States, and this cannabinol, this was artifact from THC. So this was first real compound, cannabidiolic acid. So you can see here Roger Adams from United States, and identification did Professor Shantavi at Palacký University in Czechoslovakia, and independently also Professor Meshulam at Rehovot Weizmann Institute. Later he came to work at the Hebrew University. Concerning THC, what was the most important compound? So again, in 1940, Professor Roger Adams in the United States, he elucidated structure of THC, but he didn't know where is exactly double bond in terpenic ring. And in 1963, this elucidated Professor Shantavi. He sent it 63 to publication, and it was published in 1964. And Professor Gaoni and Meshulam, on the right of the picture, they also published it in 1964. I really don't know who from them was first, if in Czechoslovakia or if in Israel, because Professor Shantavi gave me manuscript of Professor Meshulam, and Professor Meshulam gave me manuscript of Professor Shantavi, so they exchanged it. So we can say that at the same time, these two groups identified it, but nobody knows Professor Shantavi, because even when he published it in English language, it was in University Acta, so it was not such known around the world. The most important, of course, were cannabinoid receptors, because it was clear that behavior which is involved in the body by cannabis, that it must be organized, that is not something chaotic. And in 1988, Dr. William Anthony Devane at Professor Alan Howlett Laboratory in St. Louis University, he discovered as PhD student cannabinoid receptors. These were called central cannabinoid receptors because they are in the brain and reproductive system mostly, but today we call it CB1 receptors. Later, by Munro was discovered CB2, were discovered CB2 receptors. These are also huge molecule, as you can see. So if we compare it, so you see that these are two types of a receptor. CB1 is yellow, CB2 is pink, and you see that is a huge amount of amino acids, 472 amino acids for CB1 and 360 amino acids for CB2. If we look on expression, so CB1 receptors are mostly in cerebellum in the brain, and CB2 receptors are mostly in the spleen. So distribution, as I said before, CB1 are in reproductive system and in the brain, and CB2 receptors are in lymphoid organs and pancreas and macrophages. It was clear for scientists that cannabinoid receptors are not in the body to wait when somebody smokes a joint, because THC binds to cannabinoid receptors. It was proved before, and Professor Meshulam at Hebrew University wanted to find these endogenous compounds. So he invited Dr. Devane. He was specialist in molecular pharmacology, and he invited me, like I was specialist in analytical chemistry, and I came and I thought that I shall work with cannabis. He said, no, I want you to isolate from the brain endogenous compound. At that moment, I thought that I take turn and go back home, but I started to work, and we worked intensively 1 year. After 1 year, we didn't have a result, but we saw that there is active compound. Professor Meshulam wanted to terminate this research, but we forced him to try it with us. And after half a year, was compound endocannabinoid, what was called later, and we call it anandamide. So it was in 1992, I think in 24th March, in 1992, I have in the hand pure compounds. After last purification, I have in the tube this compound. Bill Devane tested it, it was active. I evaporated it, and tube was clean, there was nothing. And when I dissolved this nothing and we check it again, so it was active. We didn't know that it's only in picomolar concentrations. Picomolar concentrations, usually it's about 10 picomolar, so it means that it's about 3 nanograms per gram of brain. So it's really like nothing. Then they found this, so I was surprised that we were able to isolate it, because it's really minute amounts. Here I am with Bill Devane. Unfortunately, he died from cancer at age 60. And this was wonderful time where we worked together. And so it was discovered like 24th March, and in 1st December it was already published in Science. Compound was called anandamide, and it was tested already in January next year. Esther Friede, wonderful scientist, unfortunately she died from cancer of lungs. She ran marathon, she never smoked. Her mother is up to now healthy, and she died from cancer. I don't know from what. I share office with her several years. So this was first phase proving that it behaved like THC. So it was surprise for us that compound from the higher plant and compound from the brain, which are structurally different, bind to the same receptors in the body with the same potency. Ki was around 40 nanomolar. Yeah, so it was wonderful. And later we continued to work on that. Bill Devane left after anandamide discovery when we published it. He had just different ideas. Then he finished in Alaska with Northern Light. He wrote me all the time how it's wonderful. And I continued, and we published another 2 endocannabinoids 1 year later. And Dr. Shimon Ben Shabbat then identified and isolated 2-AG, 2-arachidonyl glycerol. This was PhD student. And later we also found another compound. This was a little bit different because first was amide, second was ester and glycerol derivative, and third was like ether derivative, noladin ether. And then in United States, they discovered also virodhamine, what is similar to anandamide instead of through nitrogen, so it's through hydroxyl bind to arachidonic acid. And also they discovered arachidonoyl dopamine. So these were six basic endocannabinoids. And physiological role of these endocannabinoids, of course, is known. It's only partially what you can see from appetite up to stress. Everything is affected by endocannabinoids. So it was clear that we have something new, endocannabinoid system. Here are we three, still living, me, anandamide, Shimon Ben Shabbat, 2AG, Bill Devane, CB1 receptor. But of course, we work together on anandamide, what I don't forgot. And it was clear that here is a homeostatic regulator in our body. If there is some disbalance in homeostasis, that immediately on demand are produced endocannabinoids to treat the body. Not each of us has enough strong endocannabinoid system. So then can help cannabis, because he mimics anandamide. Because many times I read that anandamide mimics THC, but in the fact it's just opposite. And it works like key and lock. Lock, these are cannabinoid receptors, and key, these are ligands, S-THC or S-anandamide. As soon as this key enters the lock, so when this endocannabinoid or cannabinoid binds to cannabinoid receptor, so start everything what we know after using cannabis. This is called such-called synaptic transmission because it's between two neurons. Yes, I show it very briefly. If we have two neurons, in the fact there is some action potential, nerve impulse, and this is like envelope over there. And we have CB1 receptor, and here is this vesicle. This is like envelope, and there is produced this endocannabinoid which goes through synaptic cleft, and is synthesized this anandamide or another endocannabinoid, and this after this synthesis it's stored for a while, and it's released, it goes to cannabinoid receptors, we call it uptake, and it binds to cannabinoid receptors, and we see everything what is going on after this activation of cannabinoid receptors. And if not all endocannabinoids are used, so then is so-called reuptake, that it's all metabolized or it can be stored for next use, but usually it's metabolized. So we have nice endocannabinoid system, which is consists from CB1, CB2, from endocannabinoids, and then, of course, from enzyme, which synthesize and decompose these endocannabinoids. So this is fatty acid amido hydrolase and monoacylglycerol lipase. And it's not such easy as one can see, because as you can see, these red are CB1, CB2 receptors, but there are many other receptors which we don't call cannabinoid receptors, but they are involved in action of cannabinoids and endocannabinoids. So it's complicated, and it's not such easy like only binding to CB1 receptors. Very nicely mentioned it Dr. Vincenzo Di Marzo from Italy. What do endocannabinoids? Relax, eat, sleep, forget, and protect. So this is what is going on. And Professor Meshulam, he said, whatever THC does, anandamide does as well, or just the opposite. Yes, and it's really said that it never was used by human because we found it 32 years ago. Up to now, it was not used by human. And if you look backwards, so when was discovered insulin? So next year, it was 1921. So next year already it was used like successful medicine. When was in 35 discovered cortisone? So next year it was wonderful medicine. But still endocannabinoids are waiting for that. So I would like to stress in this short lecture, I hope that I am in time, that when you treat cannabis, what is important? I said for no. Somebody said no, but now they accept it. That it doesn't cure every time, it doesn't cure everybody, it doesn't cure every disease, and it doesn't cure every stage of disease. This is very important because we don't want to give false hope to the patient. But still, if I look in Israel, there is about 150,000 cannabis patients. About 10% of them stop to use cannabis because it doesn't help them or they don't feel good. But still, this 90% success, it's a wonderful medicine. And concerning cannabinoids, cannabinoids and other compounds in cannabis, usually you can read that there is 700, 500 compounds. But I checked it 54 years and I have all this publication. So I can tell you that today is known from cannabis, not from one strain, but from all different strains, 3,291 compounds. From them, 301 are cannabinoids. But I am sure, so it's like on the top are cannabinoids, and then are terpenes, terpenoids, and other compounds, as you can see, flavonoids, flavonoid glycosides, polyphenols, steroids, and many other compounds. And there is certain synergy. Today they use only word entourage effect. But entourage effect, this published Meshulam and Shimon ben Shabbat, when you have active compound and inactive compound, it's more active. But today we use it also for synergy in cannabis in connection with endocannabinoid system. So this is what I wanted to tell you about endocannabinoid system, and I hope that it was okay, time.
Thank you so much. I'm sure you have questions for Mr. Hanus. We're going to get the mics out, and please raise your hands, as I'm sure he's happy to take.
First one. Yep.
Don't be afraid to ask. I answer anything what I know.
Hello, Lumír. Thank you for, again, great presentation. But maybe I would like to ask you, when you found anandamide, did you know at that time what actually you found out? I mean, what the big thing came after this? Did you realize that time?
You know, why we name it anandamide? Because Bill Devane, he loved to study just philosophy, Indian philosophy, Sanskrit, and he found word ananda, bliss, delight. So we name it that it was expected effect of anandamide, bliss, delight, and at the same time, we were, after 1.5 years of tedious work, we were very happy that we finished something. So it was also our bliss, delight, our happiness. And Professor Meshulam said, also this chemical part, it's amide, so we add ananda and we add amide, and it was anandamide. It is, in the fact, we thought that after discovery of cannabinoid receptors will be boom, but it was not yet. It was necessary to identify endocannabinoids. Then was explained why cannabis work with so many diseases. Because cannabinoid receptors, these are one of the main receptors in human body, which are almost in any part of human body. And that is why it works so many diseases. So this was really wonderful. This were a discovery of others because very fast started many teams work on these endocannabinoids. And today, you know, when I start to work with cannabis, so by letters, by mail, I ask reprints, and I have from all scientists which were working on cannabis reprints. Today, when I check database, so every week on cannabis and endocannabinoids are between 100 and 300 new scientific papers. So today it's impossible, even when you can download it, so it's impossible to read everything. So you must be specialized at certain direction.
Yeah, so it's interesting because when you ask a medical doctor why they're not using cannabis, the usual answer is because there's not much research. But now we have, as Lumír has told us, there are about 150,000 research papers that have been published today, and there are, as he said, like 300 every week coming.
This is according to the Web of Science, is 150,000 scientific papers.
Yeah, so that's really interesting to get that answer from the medical side. Do we have any more questions?
Okay, if not, thank you for your attention.
I actually have one question. How important do you think it's for the general public to become aware of this? Because it seems to be that we humans need to know, and this information needs to be get out, because it's like having our own self-regulatory system that we should get used to and we could be observant of.
I think that endocannabinoid system should be at the universities to teach students, because they must understand what is endocannabinoid system, and then they understand why cannabis is such important. Because if they don't understand this, they will be all the time against cannabis, you know. I met so many persons which treated themselves with cannabis, cancer patients. Not every cancer and not every patient, but I met many and many which were treated. It's something like they were clean of cancer cells, but when they stop cannabis, in some cases it returns. So after treatment, they should use it some lower amount to keep themselves healthy. So it's not palliative, it's not curative, it's something like between that. But mostly it's palliative, what is also wonderful, because if patient feels like healthy, it's wonderful for patients, it's wonderful for his or her friends and for family.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. Let's give him a big hand.